Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. We're getting some warmer days right now, and if you live anywhere from about where I am, where you still have a little bit of ice, down to Florida, where you've got really warm temperatures, honestly, anywhere in between. So the majority of the country, you're talking about fish that are moving from wintering phase to pre-spawn phase. And because of that, there's really only a handful of baits, in my opinion, that you need to do a lot of your damage. So I've got here for you 5 baits that I've got tied on pretty much from February, March, April, even into May in some instances, but really in March and April for lakes across the country. You know, if I can get on the river up around my house, these baits work. If I can get on a lake like Clark's Hill or Lanier or the Ozarks region, I mean, it really doesn't matter. The TVA lakes, these are going to be some of your best baits. So I'm going to give you the specific bait in the color that I really like and where I like to throw it. What situation, what are the conditions where I find that these baits truly excel. But if you see me on the water in the end of February, March, April, these baits will be tied on. I can assure you of that. So I want to share these with you, and I want to point out too that all of these baits, I'll put links in the video description to Tackle Warehouse. So if you want to make a purchase and you want to support the channel, please use those links. And yeah, guys, these are some of my absolute favorite baits. So the first one we're going to talk about here is one I've talked quite a bit about on the channel. This is the Berkley Stunna. This is the +1, so it's a little bit deeper diving. It's the shad fillet color, which is my favorite jerkbait color of all times. Bright chartreuse belly, translucent sides, and a very natural back to it. This color works everywhere in the country, regardless of whether your water is gin clear or got a lot of color to it. It's got a lot of characteristics that will get you bites, regardless of watercolor. Now, this is a bait I'm going to be throwing pretty much everywhere I go if I've got fish that are suspended in the water column, or if I'm fishing some more main lake or secondary points, or even some creek channel bends. But if I'm fishing a lake that's got a lot of really clear water, a jerkbait's going to be one of my absolute go-tos for this time of the year. And the Stunna and the shad fillet is definitely going to be tied on. Next up, if we've got water that is not clear, meaning, you know, a lot of times in the spring we get a lot of rain, therefore you get a lot of runoff. You can run into those circumstances where your lake is just chocolate milk, like mud, and it's really tough to fish those. But in those conditions, in my opinion, one of the absolute best baits that you can throw is a Colorado bladed spinnerbait. I like to throw it in this coleslaw color. So this is the Berkley Power Spin, the double tandem Colorado blade. I will a lot of times switch from gold over to a colored blade, just depends on how dirty the water is. And then I like to match it up with a boot tail swim bait like this Power Swimmer. You know, the whole goal here is I'm trying to create a lot of noise, a lot of vibration without moving my bait fast. Because the water is really dirty, if I'm bringing this past the lay down tree, a lot of times the faster the moving bait, the less bites you get because the fish can't locate it. With a Colorado bladed spinnerbait with a big boot tail swim bait on the back, you can really, you know, creep this thing along very slowly along those high percentage targets. So anytime you've got that muddy water, a lot of times those fish are going to move to the bank because one, the water is really muddy, but two, that muddy water holds heat and therefore will be warmer closer to the bank. And in the springtime, they're looking for that warmth. So a coleslaw colored Berkley spinnerbait is definitely going to be another one that I'm reaching for. So then in between there, we're talking about a lot of crankbaits. Fish are on the bank, fish are in transition. So your transition areas, whether they're points, rock transitions, channel swings, those are all going to be very good high percentage places. And a crankbait is very, very tough to beat. So I've got 2 here that I like to throw. I've got a bunch of crankbaits that I like to throw, but 2 of my favorites is the Berkley Fritside 5, and then this is the Spring Craw color. So it's a brighter chartreuse bait. I like to throw a flat-sided crankbait like that when I'm talking about fishing very cold water temps. A lot of times those fish don't necessarily want a very wide wobbling bait. And at this point, this little Fritside 5 has been a proven fish catcher in cold water. Now, when the water temp starts getting up into that mid-50 range, One of my favorite baits to go with is the Duo Realis M62 5A. This is the red tiger color, I believe. This is a wide wobbling, very good hunting action crankbait that does great on a bunch of those rock transition areas where that you might have a little bit more watercolor, but because the water's warmer, a lot of those fish are looking for a faster moving bait. And the M62 and the M65, one size bigger, in this color particularly, is one of my absolute favorites in the spring. And you'll see most of these are fast moving baits. A jerkbait I still consider to be more of a power fishing technique, even though it is finesse. But I like to throw hard baits in the spring months, the early pre-spawn period. But I will say one of the must-have baits that I throw that is not a hard body bait is a Kitech tungsten casting jig with a small chunk trailer on the back. In this case, I've pulled the weed guard out because I do that in a lot of instances if I'm fishing just a rock bank. One of my favorite places to throw this jig is on those rock transition banks where you have more of a stair-stepping, like little ledge rock. And those fish will get up on those little steps. They'll follow those steps from a transition standpoint. And a little Kitech tungsten casting jig has caught me so many big fish. It's pretty ridiculous. I love it. When I'm fishing those rocks, I love the tungsten head. It makes a little bit of a different sound. And it's one of those baits that I have to have tied on. And I will have tied on all spring long, pre-spawn, I should say. So if I need to slow down, this is the bait that I'm generally grabbing. I'm going to flip this in the laydowns. I'll flip it down some rock transition banks. If I come across a dock, I'll skip this up under it. Does a lot of the, I would say it catches me probably less fish, but the average size is much better on that. So overall, guys, if you run into me this spring, if you see me at Clark's Hill, these are going to be baits that I have tied on. I'm actually starting to prep for that tournament and rig up some rods. I'm putting all these on right now. I'm looking forward to that tournament because it's going to be one of my favorite times to fish. First week of March, we got a little bit of a warming trend. Fish are going to be moving. These are the baits that I'm going to use. Let me know in the comment section, what are some of the baits that you like to throw during the transition period of the pre-spawn window? I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'm sure a lot of the other viewers would love to hear as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. We'll have a new video tomorrow for you.